Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about options for 3D modeling if you're not a 3D modeler, if you don't enjoy 3D modeling. So sometimes you still need models to animate. And so we're going to go through the workflow for doing photogrammetry and then retopologizing that model. So hopefully I'll get to that in a video or two. So let's open up an image here. Open it up in the other screen. I'll pull this back over here. This is just a series of images I took of an owl. Let me zoom out here so you can see it a little bit better, but flip through them, you'll see that I took a whole bunch of images of this. And this is sort of the process of how photogrammetry works. So first you're going to need lots of images of the object. I usually walk around in a circle and get a photo from about every 15 to 30 degrees, 45, something like that. So you can get images from all angles, and I do that high and low, so we get some, that's going the wrong way. So we get some images that are, in all sorts of different angles. You'll see I'm just sort of circling around it, right? And then I also get some close-ups of different angles. And so once we have these, we're going to try to get these in the most neutral light situation possible. So this was about the best I could come up with for this guy. The lighting's still not neutral because you can see the back of the object has more dense lighting, or like darker light, darker shadows, and less light than the front of the object does. So this works better if like on a cloudy day or something like that. You may be able to get something, or if you can get a controlled lighting situation indoors. So once we have all of these images, we're going to need to get Autodesk Remake. Okay, so Remake, you can get a free student version of that, is a way of taking all of those images and creating a mesh out of them. So I'll just show you some examples of previous models I've done, taking multiple pictures. It's going to generate kind of like 3D scan data. And what it does is it takes different points on the model, or different points in the photos, like in terms of, let me tumble around here and see if I can get in here closer so we can see. And this one's a pretty decent one. It's a statue. I just took these pictures at a plant store, like a garden store. That was that. And so it's not perfect, but we got a pretty decent model out of this, right? And so you'll see that if I turn on my wireframe visualization, let's actually just go to nothing but the wireframe. This is the mesh that it's giving me, right? So I got a lot of information in here about the texture on this, and I get at least an effort at some texture, some color on this as well. But you'll see that I didn't get enough photos from below, and so I have this weird thing that's happening on the bottom here. And I think also the inside of this bowl has got a hole in it, right? So that didn't work exactly right, and so if I wanted to use this, I'd probably either have to fix those pieces or get more pictures, right? So we do this in a controlled lighting situation, and what we're able to do is we're able to bring those pictures in. I'm go ahead and create 3D, I hit offline, and I'm allowed to click here, and I have all of my pictures sort of organized here under my images. I think I want this one through this one, and it's going to load these up in here, and then I'll hit create model. Now you want to choose images that are not blurry, and you want to choose images that are all kind of consistent in lighting. So you'll probably want to take this with a digital SLR set to manual mode, so you can control the aperture and shutter speed for each of the images, right? But once I hit create model, it will just churn on this. It'll process it for a long time, and it took this one probably maybe 45 minutes or something like that. And eventually what we'll get, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to wait 45 minutes again. Eventually what you'll get is a model out of that. So let me show you the owl model that we got out of this. So this is what it was able to generate from those pictures, right? And it's actually a really good scan. There's a lot of detail in here. I can turn on the wireframe mesh. You'll be able to see that I got a lot of information in here. But it's almost unusable because of how dense it is, right? Like, look at all of this information in here. It's all triangles. This is not particularly clean or nice mesh, right? And it's not intended to be. It's just supposed to be a mesh that is accurate. Right? So what we need out of this is to be able to take this into another program and get better topology out of it. So first, let's just take this into Maya. But let's try that, because that is an option. So if I go to export, I'm going to export my model. I'm going to use FBX. I'm going to do high. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my advanced settings. So I've got this cranked up as high as it'll go. As for the textures, go back to FBX. As for the textures, I'm going to tell it to rebake those textures. And I want to do a single, let's do a 4096 by 4096 map. I also wouldn't mind having a displacement and normal map. Even if I don't use them, I'll go ahead and generate them, because why not? You know? And I'll hit export. So it's in my OWL folder. I'll go ahead and say to Maya. Open that, save. And so it's going to churn around on this for a while, and then eventually it'll kick out my model and all of my maps. So let's go to that folder, and we'll evaluate that. So here's that OWL folder, still working. OWL, oh, no, that's in the right spot. To Maya, so it's not done yet. It'll tell us what it is. And again, this may take a few minutes because it's calculating a lot of things here. It's probably the rebaking of the texture that is giving us the biggest issue. So wish I could pause the video. So how y'all doing? Yeah. So in the meantime, while this is loading up, we can create a new topology inside of Maya, and I'll show you how to do that. But there's a couple of other tools we're going to get as well. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and search here. I'm going to search for instant meshes, and this is actually an open source program. It's the name of it is Instant Meshes, and we can click on any of these, but I'm going to click on this GitHub, and I need to download, I want to download the install, not, okay, the following binaries are automatically generated from the GitHub, yeah, so I think it's this one. Yeah, so I'm just going to install this to a temporary meshes folder. Right? And hit save, show folder. So this is just a program we're going to use here in a minute. And this is going to allow us to get some automatic solutions to our topology. So I'm just going to go ahead and extract meshes window. Yeah, so that's the program I needed. Let's see how that export's going. Looks like it's done. So if I go back to that folder, to Maya, you'll see we got this owl.fbx. I don't know where I put my textures. Peculiar. Owl. So I'm not sure why it doesn't have my textures in here, but maybe it's because I was not in texture mode, but I think I can export just the textures if I needed to. Anyway, we'll come back to that if we need the textures. But right now, it may have put them somewhere else, and that would be annoying. But let's see what we can get. So I'm going to go to Maya. Go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to go to File, File, import. Okay, and that's going to open up this window. And I'm going to go ahead and go and find that file that I just exported. I will import. Okay, so this is the way it's going to bring it into our scene. I do not know why we don't have, I have no idea where it's getting those textures if it didn't export texture files, but whatever. I'm going to hold down J so we can snap it to the right origin here. We can actually change that when we exported it. I think I left it as Z up instead of Y up. We have an object in here inside of Maya now that looks pretty good as a model, right? But again, is very good. It would be very difficult to use this for animation, right? It's extremely dense. If I go in here to heads-up display, I'm going to put on my poly count. Currently, it's saying that this is almost 1 million faces, right? So that's a lot. Like, that's pretty dense, and if I were to start deforming this, I would get some not so great results. Right? So what I'm going to do instead is we're going to recreate a new model on top of this using this as our base model. And this is called retopologizing. Okay? So we're going to create new topology, retopologizing. So Maya has some tools built in for that. If I go to my modeling toolkit, it's actually the quad draw tool. Okay, so if I click the quad draw tool, it's pretty neat. Let's have it. Oh, really? That's kind of new. So quad draw generally was looking for something to be drawing on. Like, it used to just draw on the floor, but it's not. Like, right now what we need to do is just select a mesh and hit quad draw, and it's still giving me an error. Or is it crashing? There we go. So actually, that's not what I wanted to do though. I'm gonna go back to hit escape here. Go back to my object mode. So what I actually want to do is I want to be able to show you how the tool works without having to do that, but I don't know. Apparently that's new. So what we have to do to get the quad draw to work is we have to select an object and make it live. Okay. So in the past, you used to be able to just draw straight onto the ground. I don't know why that's not an option anymore, but okay. So I have this object selected, and if I click this little magnet here, that's called making it live. And so you'll see that it moves that name of the object over here, right? And now I'm in a live surface, right? Now if I click quad draw now, you'll see that whenever I mouse over this live surface, I get this little crosshair. Right? When I'm not on it, nothing happens, but when I'm on it, I get this crosshair. And if I click, it's just going to create a little green dot. Right? And that little green dot, hopefully you can see it right there, doesn't really mean that much. Right? But if I click again, I got multiple green dots. I can do this until I have 4. And I can do that until I have as many as I want. Now when I hold down Shift, it's going to allow me to click again and make those 4 green dots into a piece of mesh. And what you'll notice every time I click one of these dots, it's sticking to the surface of this object. Right? So I hold down Shift again, and I'm able to start drawing new mesh on this object. Okay? And I can go through here and I can start recreating this model out of these quads. Right. Now, that's not enough information. I need there to be another span in there. You'll see how it's not getting that roundedness of the front of the belly. So if I hold down Control, I can insert a new edge loop there, and you'll see that when I do, it will snap out to that mesh. Right. I can keep holding Control and subdividing this as much as I want. Keep in mind though that if I subdivide it too much early on, that if I want to keep going, now I have tons of little quads I have to draw to keep extending this up. So what I usually do is I keep it pretty simple for as long as I can, right? And that way I can start, getting additional details in here. Now, at some point I'm going to click a button and I'm like, oh, that's not really where I wanted that, right? If I'm going to, create my 2 points here, that's fine. But you'll see that like I don't really want that point to be there. It'd be nicer if it was up here. Well, I can click on that and move it around, right? I think middle click will also do that. I may want to move multiple pieces of mesh. Eventually, we're going to have a lot of polygons in this thing. And if that's the case, if I hold down B, or if I tap B, you'll see that now I get, or if I actually have to hold down B and drag, you'll start to see I get sort of this this range. And so now when I middle click, I can sort of soft shift this whole thing, right? So it's kind of using like the soft mod tool. And if I hold shift and click while it's in that, it's going to relax those, right? So if I start getting too many edges in here and they start getting kind of dense, I can hold shift and kind of relax that out, right? So these are some really nice tools to get a completely new piece of model, right? Let's do like that. Problem with this is I'm going to go to B, scale that down to 0. The problem with this is I'm still having to redraw every piece, right? And that takes a while. And it probably should, because this is a hard, like, this is not something that we should just take lightly, is how this model is made. But sometimes we want to be able to, get a usable mesh a little faster. And so that's what that other tool is that we just downloaded, right? So this is a great way of getting this mesh, probably even the best way of getting it. But if the retopologizing process also requires you to know more about where all of these edges should go, right? And so if modeling isn't, your area of expertise, I'm going to show you an alternative to this. So I'm just going to select that object we've been making and I'm going to delete it, right? Because really what we're needing right now more than anything is just, I want to make this unlive as well just by unclicking that, is I just need to be able to export out this object, right? So I'm going to go to File, Export Selection, right? And I can export this out. I know we already kind of have one in this to Maya. I'm going to create a new folder in here. Actually, I'm going to make a new folder up here. I'm going to say to instant meshes is the name of that software. Right? And I'm going to go ahead and export this out as a, I think I can do it as an OBJ or an FBX, either one. Now, if you don't see the type of file you need here, like there's FBX and that will work, right? But if you're needing OBJ and you don't see it, or if you need FBX and you don't see it, you may have to turn on the plugin. And I can show you how to do that here in a minute. Well, I'll go show you now, I guess. Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager. And then somewhere here in this Plugin Manager, you should be able to find the OBX export or the FBX. I'm sorry, OBJ or FBX export. So with it selected, File, Export Selection, I'm going to go ahead and do that. To Instant Meshes. I'll save that as an FBX. I'll call this Owl. Export Selection. Okay. Now, I probably could still use that other mesh that I had earlier, but at the same time, I don't want to have to worry about the orientation. Like now it's in the same orientation as it is in Maya. So let's go ahead and open up that Instant Mesh program we downloaded. Now, it's not an installed file. It's just an exe that runs by itself. So when I run that, this is what's going to pop up. Okay. So open meshes. It looks like it's looking for an OBJ. So maybe I have to re-export this. I may have been incorrect. Let's see. Desktop. Let's see if it'll do the FBX. Photogrammetry, Owl. Images, to instant meshes. Okay, so it's looking for the FBX or OBJ instead of FBX. So we can do that. Go back to Maya, File, Export Selection. I'm going to look for OBJ in this file format. OBJ. All right, and we'll call this Owl. I don't know why I always want to put an E in Owl. Okay. So now, when I go back to Instant Meshes and do that again, open mesh, I have to go back to Desktop, Photogrammetry, Owl, Images, to Instant Mesh, open it. It's going to take it a second to load it because it's kind of dense, but eventually it should open this up. Yay, there's our owl. Right? And what we're needing is this thing to auto-generate some topology for us. Okay, so let's click on Advanced. Oh, that looks okay. Yeah, I'm all right with that. So I'm going to click that away. I'm going to hit quads. So that's good. Where we're at is good, 4x4. So whenever we're ready, we're going to look at our target vertex count, 31,000. That's going to be approximately like 60,000 faces or something, maybe a little bit more. So I mean, we can make that a little smaller, but 60,000 isn't bad, right? And so what I want to do is I'm going to hit the solve button. Let's see what that looks like. And so it's going to try to generate all of these lines around my model, right? And so these lines tell us how it wants these edges to flow, right? And so this isn't bad. Like you'll see that most of these edges found some interesting solutions. So if I want to change some of that though, I can draw lines in this, and it's under this orientation field, this comb tool. So I think that this is, for the most part, all right. But let's go ahead and start drawing some extra lines. And every time I draw a line with this tool, it will try to reline all of this topology to fit this line. So I'm just going to click and draw right through there. And you're going to see it just recreated all the topology. And I don't necessarily know I wanted all of it redone. But I'm just going to keep drawing and kind of get these edges where I want them to be, right? The thing that kind of sucks is you can't tumble unless while you're in the comb tool. So I go ahead and click out of that, and then I can sort of tumble around again and find other edges where I need to draw additional comb lines. Right? Maybe through here. Here. So I'm just trying to get some of these like these little tufts of fur here. I'm just trying to get those to make more sense. And I'm being very roundabout with this. I'm not being very precise at all. Like that. I know around my character's neck I need a line that makes some sense. I probably will also need some stuff through here. So I'm just doing this just to get the topology I want. But let's say I wanted this character's eyes to blink. I may need that to be sort of circular, right, around its eyes. So I may go ahead and draw that in. You see now it's kind of going in circles around these eyes. And so this may take a little while, just going through and sort of thinking of the way you want these edges to flow. But it's not going to take as long as if I were manually creating all of my own topology. So something like that. Go ahead and put one through here as well. I'll do one through the character's forehead. So all of this is going to help me, get an idea of how these edges should flow, or help the program get an idea. And it's just trying to come up with a solution for you that makes you happy. Right? So you can kind of see an example now where I've been drawing these lines crisscross. Now it's wanting these polygons to go sort of diagonal here. but I could also just draw a line straight down through the center of the forehead, and it'll try to recreate some of those. So now we're getting a different flow through that, right? So we're going to keep messing with that. And eventually, I'm going to go down here to my position field. I'll hit solve there. And that's going to give us an idea of what this mesh is going to look like. Now, these are kind of hard to understand, but these are more for like the harder edges. Like if you needed a, if you need to retopologize a box or something like that, these would help you get that information. But what you're going to notice is that this is, I need to get out of comb mode. This is actually not bad topology-wise. Like I'm getting something pretty decent all the way around through here, and you're seeing that it's trying to adhere to some of that information I gave it earlier, right? Now, whenever I can go back and forth between that, I can go back to solve here and still make more changes with my comb, right? And then go back to solve position field again and make some changes there. And if I'm still not happy with this, there's also this brush tool here that'll allow us to change some stuff in here. But right now, let's say this is where we wanted. I'm going to go to Export Mesh, right? I always do pure quad mesh because triangles are going to cause some issues maybe. Smoothing iterations, we can play around with this. I'm going to go ahead and do mine up to like 2 to increase this mesh uniformity. Yeah, we can play around with that. Let's try 2 and say extract mesh. Let's see what it's going to give us. It's running some programs, and so this is the mesh that it generates from that, right? Now, if you're cool with that, that's awesome. Like, you may even want that more smooth. I think this is also going to sort of round some of that hard stuff, so we can extract mesh again. Anyway, whenever you're finished with it, whenever you're happy with it, right, we're going to hit save, and I'm going to save this as owl to Maya. Probably should come up with a better naming convention than that, but okay, what just happened? Oh, did I overwrite I have to owl to Maya.obj. Save. And there we go. And so now what I can do is I can go back in here to Maya and go File, Import, and I'm going to import that owl to Maya.obj. And what I should get is 2 meshes here, right? And they're right on top of each other. This is my original mesh, and there's my new retopologized mesh. And you can see that they both are very similar, but completely different in terms of topology. Like this is all triangles and very random, and this is a little bit more consistent. Right, now this may even be a little too dense. Like I may need to go back and turn that down a little bit more. This is looking like it's about 120,000 faces, 122,000 faces. And that's not, ridiculous in terms of animation. Now the thing we need to change though is this does not have any textures to it, right? And so if we need that texture from this mesh on this mesh, right? So we can bake that out in Maya. We can bake that out in a couple of different programs, but let's go ahead and see if we can try that on here too. I know we're pushing it. It's about 30 minutes in, so yeah, let's go ahead and see if this works. It may be a little slow. So I'm going to move this, or I'm going to name this so I can see it a little more clearly. This is original. The other one is extra crispy, of course. And this one is retopo. Right? And so now I can open up my outliner here, mount that in there. And what I'm really needing to do is I need to bake the textures from original onto retopo. Right? Now retopo needs some good UVs before we do that. So we'll go to Windows UV Editor, Modeling UV Editor. Right? And currently it has no UVs. Right? So this is not the right way to do it, but I would, once we have some UVs, we would slice it up and we would do our UV map. Well, let's go ahead and just do, for right now, let's just go ahead and do automatic on this to get some some UVs on it. It's going to take it a minute. There we go. And so now we have some, some UVs, but they're not good. Like, that's not what I would want. I would probably actually do the unfold tool and like cut a seam and do the unfold tool. But this will work temporarily. So they have to be in the same location. What we're going to do is we're going to transfer the material, which is on this character's UVs, which are not good either, right, onto, actually, let's just mount this over here. This makes more sense. Can I put it, there we go. So, no, I can hide this channel box. So what I want is the, I want the material that's on here, on the good one, right, the original one, to be on these new UVs. Right? So I'm going to select original. I'm going to go to mesh and, oh, I'm sorry, no, this isn't right. It's under rendering. It's going to be lighting and shading transfer maps. Okay, so it opens up this mesh or this box. Right? I want to tell it that my target mesh is actually this retopo button. So add selected to my target mesh. And I actually want to remove original. So retopo, add selected. Right? So that's retopo shape is the one it's looking for. Right? The source object is going to be my original. So add selected. So original shape. The output maps, I'm going to do normal, displacement, diffuse, just so I have those. And you can probably change these to EXRs or something that makes more sense that you can open up. My common attributes here, this is something we're going to have to look at. So we can do 2048 by 2048. If we want to do that, it's going to match it. World space, you can do high. You can do a test and like one of these lower ones to see if it's going to work first. But once we get all that, and there's some more stuff we can nitpick in here. This is like a whole video into itself. We should be able to bake and close. So I want to do this on a lower level so we may be able to see that happen quickly. Bake and close. This does not look like something that's, yeah, so we're getting this sampling down here and you'll see it calculates it. And what we hopefully will get is that new material baked onto that retopo. Now again, you'll want to do that with cleaner UVs than what I use here, but this allows you to go from having a bunch of photos to a relatively functional model, and like this video is 32 minutes right now, in about 32 minutes. So this is totally a possibility. So it's going to sample it multiple times. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. Well, let's see if it gets it this time. No, in this last sample. Let's see if it works. Almost 50%. Yay! Okay, so now if I hide this original one, Control H, you'll see that my new one has the material on it, right? And has good topology. Now this material didn't bake the best in the world, but that's because it's that preview version of it. We wanted a higher level version of that. And we have a fully functional piece of topology now that if I wanted to go to like my right view, let's do it my front view, right? I could go in here now, skeleton, create joints. Put a couple of joints in here. perspective, and 6. Bind skin. See if this works. Probably should have deleted history first. I may have just crashed my. Oh crap! I used heat map. Anyway, you get the idea. I can set up a quick rig now that I can actually move this character around and deform him. So yeah, well, I should have changed the mapping because that's going to take forever to come up with a heat map, and then it's just going to fail anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop recording now. Hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know. Talk to you soon.